Canada votes on Monday, April 28th, 2025. This is a hotly contested election. Everybody should vote. It's your right. It's your privilege. We live in a democracy. We all deserve the right to have our vote, and you should definitely exercise your vote. We're going to try and key in on a few policies that we believe are the most important for our investors and our followers. Firstly, we're going to talk about housing. So we have a shortage of approximately 3.5 million homes. Both parties are vowing to fix it, which is good. They have very different solutions. Let's just talk about what the Liberals are going to do first. They're going to build a federal home building company, and they're going to build housing. They're also going to double the rate of new housing construction. They don't give any details on how, but that's what part of their platform. They plan to build on federal and military land. They plan to tie everything to infrastructure investments. They want to remove HST for new home buyers up to $1.5 million purchase price, focus on affordability, accessibility, sustainability, train 100,000 new workers, and take the philosophy that housing is a public good. So this is very much the government will solve your problems and spend the money that way approach. Conservatives want to solve the problem, but probably in a very different way. They're going to be focused on tax cuts. So here's what they got. They're planning to build 2.3 million homes in 5 years, relying on private developers, not the government. They plan to remove HST on all homes, not just first-time home buyers, of up to $1.3 million purchase price. That's going to be key. That's going to hit a lot of markets. They plan to sell off 15% of federal land and buildings for housing. They do plan to give checks to municipalities who decide to cut fees, so up to $50,000 per home. That's pretty effective. They want to scrap housing taxes, like the underused housing tax, and they want to withhold funds from cities who block building. Although that is a provincial legislation, that one will be harder for them to figure out. They want to cut bureaucracy through tax incentives, whereas the Liberals want to build housing through building more infrastructure to build houses. So two very different ways. My personal belief is the tax cut way will actually create the fastest ramp up of the housing. And given that we have to build a whole lot of houses, I think starting sooner is better. To me, the clear winner on that one is Conservatives, but you have your choice. You should go and vote for what you believe is the best one. Let's talk about taxes. Liberals are promising a middle-class tax cut, but have not given any details. They have canceled the federal carbon tax on consumers, but not on corporations. They want to keep all their major social programs. The Conservatives are silent on that. The use of federal power to fund public infrastructure and housing. Again, that's a repeat of what he's doing on the housing stuff. No new planned taxes, just rebalancing priorities. Philosophy, invest in people, productivity, growth. Again, this is the same sort of tax and spend, except for they're trying not to increase their taxes. So we're definitely running a deficit. Conservatives, I think they're also looking at running a deficit, but they're going to do it a different way. Again, they're doing it through tax cuts. So they want to cut and I like this one, they want to cut the lowest income tax bracket from 15 to 12.75%. That gives everybody an immediate tax break, which I think is great. And they're going to axe the carbon tax entirely, which will, that affects all pricing. So carbon tax is on things like gasoline, fuel, and many of our resources. You cut that tax, those resources become cheaper. That makes us globally competitive. That means things cost less. That reduces inflation. That is actually how it works. For the Liberals to argue that having the carbon tax is just like a built-in thing, the other countries will pay it, is the same thing that Trump is arguing with tariffs. So that makes no sense. This is a good thing. Eliminate tax on reinvested capital gains. That's brilliant. Add $5,000 bonus to the TFSA room if investing in Canadian businesses. That sounds good to me too. We're seeing two different approaches here. We're both going in deficit. One's going to be doing it through tax cuts. The other is going to be doing it through redistribution, keeping everything the same, but redistributing how we spend all the money. So I think those are two very different philosophies. You guys You know which way I'm leaning. I'm all about tax cuts. International relations. Carney has a clear track record here, being the Bank of Canada. He wants to Trump-proof our economy. He wants to build better east-west infrastructure, bypass the U.S. choke points, expand Canada's global reach in Europe, Asia, and Africa, invest in supply chains made in Canada, resilient, use the government purchasing to support Canadian steel and cement, which sounds like a subsidy, which is more government spending, create Arctic ports and northern infrastructure, and push the climate cooperation, which is, again, climate agenda, which, again, costs money. Okay, Conservatives, Canada First policy, be unapologetic about our sovereignty, repeal regulations that slow down and block energy exports. I agree with that. That's great. Let's bring Alberta back into the fold here and have a good national energy policy. Fast track the national energy corridor to ship resources without reliance on the U.S. I think everybody agrees with that. Now, retaliate against U.S. tariffs with a Keep a Canadian Working Fund. Again, I think that's both parties. Expand trade with allies, freer trade within Canada and abroad. Both parties. Promote natural gas and mining as global solutions. That is our strength, and we should lean into it. Hopefully it's obvious to both parties that's what we're doing. And their philosophy is defend our exports, grow our energy sector, and lead from strength. So that's our international one. And last is Canadian economy in general. Under the last Conservative government, we were ranked about 10th globally on per capita GDP, and I think that was in 2009. Today, after the Liberals, we're about 19th, and we're 30th in the world in purchase power parity. So the idea that our productivity has slipped under the Liberals is there. And what you need to ask yourself is this more government spending going to make us more competitive under Liberal plans? I personally believe lower taxes makes us more competitive because we get to use the money to help ourselves do the thing that's best for us. I think each individual has the best plan for themselves. I think the Liberals have also proven that the heavy subsidies did not help our productivity, and we've slipped. Ironically, if you lower our productivity, that lowers our ability to fund social programs that we actually like healthcare. I think it's better for all Canadians that we get more productive. I personally am leaning to less taxes, more freedom to move. Unfortunately, both platforms seem to be pushing us into deficit. So if you're looking for deficit relief, I think they both talk about doing it, but neither is actually delivering on that. And we're not going to do the other parties at this point because we don't believe that they're really a voice in this election that you need to worry about. Unless you want to vote NDP or Bloc, which I'm not, you can't unless you live in Quebec. Anyway, that's it for today. And go vote on April 28th, 2025. Vote April 28th, 2025.